We talked a few months ago about Capcom and how their entire company over the last few years has done some really impressive turnarounds. And it continues to thrive even more these days with nothing but success and hype surrounding their products. And fans' anticipation for their upcoming releases are absolutely through the roof. You know, with Street Fighter 6 being a worldwide success along with its bangers of DLC characters, that SNK collab is such a good move. Monster Hunter continuing its trends of becoming a massive franchise, both in player rates and profitability, and Resident Evil's remakes and new titles continuing to succeed. It seems that Capcom has the blueprint that AAA companies in the gaming industry have been desperately searching for, and the success doesn't stop there. It continues with today's news of Resident Evil 2 Remake reaching officially 14 million sales worldwide. I see nothing but great things in their future. I mean, we always have, but it's been a minute since we talked about Resident Evil and we got a lot to discuss. And you guys don't want to miss out when it comes to that legendary remake we've been hearing about. So hit that subscribe button and notification bell to stay up to date and help raise that 38% even higher. Now, with that being said, let's get into this video. Resident Evil 2 Remake released back in 2019 with huge success, generating a great amount of sales, player traction, and hype. And not only that, the launch of Resident Evil 2 Remake was the beginning of the new direction that Capcom is taking when it comes to remaking their older titles. The Resident Evil series, while it does have big initial sales, has always been a series that continues to consistently put up great numbers, even after launch, and continues to have great growth. Shoutouts to Genki for this tweet. Resident Evil 2 Remake has sold almost 14 million units worldwide, the highest selling game in the series. The official number is 13.9 million as of March 31st, 2024, and Capcom staff is celebrating with these Resident Evil 2 Remake cakes. I would imagine since March, when the numbers were initially taken in, it's definitely crossed over to that threshold for sure, so they're celebrating with these custom cakes over here. Resident Evil 2 Remake was a really solid title. I didn't play it in 2019 when it initially dropped. I actually didn't play Resident Evil 2 Remake until a couple weeks before Resident Evil 4 Remake was dropping. And I had a very unique perspective where I bought the Steam bundle that came with both Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake for a super cheap deal. I think it was like $20 something for both of those titles. I was able to play RE2 Remake and then 3 back to back of each other. Probably best way to experience Resident Evil 3 Remake. A lot of people are very upset with the way that that title was handled. I totally get it. I see exactly why. Because people back in 2020 paid full price for a game that was significantly cut through with what the original title had in store. And if you played it on launch, I don't blame you for feeling the way that you did. But fast forward to my experience with it, the way I played it, it sort of felt like a DLC to Resident Evil 2, if that makes sense. So I still saw a lot of positives within it. Interestingly enough, if you go to Capcom's main website where they're talking to their investors about their titles and basically telling you why you should be investing in their company, they are absolutely standing on business when it comes to their titles and their sales. I mean, they say it up straight right here. We have over 100 titles that have sold more than 1 million units. Capcom stands alone in the video game industry with this feat. Pretty crazy when you think about it. And if you look through the official numbers, like Monster Hunter World is sitting at 20 million units, Monster Hunter Rise 14 million, and then Resident Evil 2 at the 13.9. But of course, these numbers, it does say right here as of March 31st, 2024. So that's about 3 months ago from the time of recording this video. So they definitely have changed over time from then. If you go through this wiki page, these numbers are pretty legit. I was looking at this and I'm like, why is Resident Evil 5 at 15 million? But when you go to their platinum sales website and you go down right here, they're actually saying Resident Evil 5 is in 7th place at 9.10 million units. And the reason for that is, and it actually makes a lot of sense, is they're actually counting all of the release iterations of Resident Evil 5. So the initial launch right here, Steam release as well, the Biohazard triple pack, and then you got the Gold Edition, which came with the DLC, and then the re-release on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, which, crazy enough, sold 3 million. I didn't realize that. So yeah, Resident Evil 5 actually the #1 in the series. Genki's tweet essentially says highest selling game in the series, which yes, technically it is. We can also look at that as the highest selling in the remake series. But if you count all the re-releases for Resident Evil 5, it's technically still up there, man. But yo, amazing accomplishment by their team. Actually, no, let's put some respect on Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 Remake sold 14 million copies without needing any re-releases, whereas when you look at the Resident Evil 5 numbers, actually, yeah, like it needed so many re-releases throughout the years from 2009, 2019, 2010, and 2016 in order to reach that number, whereas Resident Evil 2 Remake was just released once in 2019, but it is readily available on every single platform known to man, I think, except for the Switch. Yeah, actually no, Nintendo Switch right there, which, yeah, actually it's a cloud-based game on the Switch. I'm telling you guys right now, Nintendo consoles are going to be a super hack when it comes to games selling a crazy amount, especially when the new one drops. Hopefully, it's going to be capable of PlayStation 4 quality graphics. And I am curious to see exactly what Resident Evil 4 Remake is doing right now, and it's about 7 million units, which is pretty good. I think the initial launch was about 3-4 million, so it looks like a year later now, they've continued on and almost are well on their way of doubling that. I'm telling you guys, the Resident Evil series, man, it sells consistently over time. Even if we go through their top 10 products again, a title that a lot of people didn't necessarily really like initially, Resident Evil 3 Remake is up there with 8.7 million units, and it's in their top 10s. That's crazy. Now, when it comes to the legendary title, they are talking about none other than Resident Evil 1 getting a remake or being next in line to getting a remake. We all thought it was going to be Resident Evil 5, and that very well could still be the case. Reliable people that have been talking about this within the industry have come out and said that Resident Evil 1 Remake is a real thing, and Capcom is looking to do it in the same style that Resident Evil 2 Remake had. Not necessarily Resident Evil 4 Remake, because while Resident Evil 4 Remake was awesome, that game at its core was more of an action game where Leon had a crazy arsenal, not to mention a system that essentially made you feel safe at all times when it came to dealing with whatever the enemies are throwing at you. Whereas the original Resident Evil 1 and 2 as well were more survival horror that actually made you feel kind of helpless and you had to like work with what you had. But it seems that Capcom is trying to capture that exact feeling and not have it over the top action heavy like how obviously Resident Evil 4 Remake was. And I mean, that wouldn't make sense for that title to be that way as well, and I'm pretty sure that would not go over well with fans. The only negatives I've been seeing about when it comes to Resident Evil 1 Remake is the fact that they will be ditching the original's fixed camera, which if you guys remember the 2002 remake of Resident Evil 1 that was on GameCube, which actually is a very good remake, and a lot of people point to that title saying, hey, this game does not need a remake. We have this title right now. I totally get that, but I could also see why Capcom would want to bring it out of 2002 and essentially next-genify it up without hopefully losing what made the original had so much charm. The leak basically asserts that the remake will retain the slower-paced gameplay of the original. Crimson Heads will be returning, and of course, replacing the pre-rendered backgrounds with real-time environments like what we could expect from their standard today's RE Engine games. I, for one, am interested to seeing how a Resident Evil 1 Remake would function with a third-person style camera like what they've been doing with their latest titles, and just how much more helpless can they make us feel. I hope it's not just a make enemies more bullet spongy, but instead giving us actual limited resources and having to make do with what we have currently, which is obviously what the harder difficulties were for. I was hoping to see a Resident Evil 5 remake eventually, and I'm pretty sure there will be at the end of RE4 remake. They kind of full on show that. But I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below. What do you think of Resident Evil 1 Remake being the next title slated for Capcom's remake series within Resident Evil? Honestly, major shout outs to Capcom when it comes to all the success, man. They've really started to hit their stride after Street Fighter 5, and even slightly before then, they really started to see a resurgence in a way. In a lot of ways, actually. And with the new Monster Hunter game on the horizons, just approaching, I don't see the company slowing down anytime soon. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed and subscribe if you are new. More Resident Evil videos are on the way and you don't want to miss them. My name is BltzZ, and thanks for watching.